My name is Lena Caldwell, and I'm 29 years old. 11 years ago, my life changed forever. Back then, I was just 18, fresh out of high school, still wearing my cap and gown, standing in the grand living room of our family mansion in Seattle. I remember the shimmer of the chandeliers, the smell of my mother's favorite lavender perfume lingering in the air, and my father's voice, sharp, cold, and deliberate, as he said the words that shattered my world. "You will never be one of us." Those words cut deeper than any blade. My mother stood beside him, her arms crossed, avoiding my eyes as if ashamed to be my mother. My older sister Ava smirked from the staircase, her laughter dripping with cruelty. "Guess the prodigy of the family didn't turn out so special after all," she said, flipping her perfect blonde hair over her shoulder. I had just told them I wanted to study computer engineering, not join the family's fashion empire, Caldwell Couture, a brand celebrated in every magazine and runway across the coast. They wanted a daughter who could charm cameras and model silk gowns. Instead, they got me, the quiet one who loves circuits more than sequins. That night, I packed my bag while tears blurred my vision. My father's words echoed in my ears. "You're a disappointment. You don't belong here." When I left the house, the rain was coming down hard, soaking my clothes as I walked away from the mansion that had never truly felt like home. I took a bus south with only $300 in my pocket and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, I could make something of myself. I ended up in San Jose, living in a one-room apartment with peeling paint and a flickering light that buzzed every night. My first job was as a junior coder for a small tech startup that paid barely enough to cover rent. But I didn't care. I was learning, building, growing. Every rejection from my family became fuel. I stayed up until dawn debugging programs, taking online courses, and sending cold emails for freelance gigs. I wasn't trying to prove them wrong anymore. I was trying to prove myself right. At 24, I landed a full-time role at Nova Systems, a growing AI company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was where I learned everything that would change my life. I soaked in every failure and every success. I spent weekends reading about entrepreneurship, teaching myself data architecture, and building prototypes in my free time. By the time I turned 26, I took the biggest risk of my life. I quit Nova and founded my own company, Code Nova, a data integration platform that used machine learning to help small businesses manage operations more efficiently. I started in my tiny apartment with nothing but a secondhand laptop and an endless determination. Investors laughed at me, some even saying, "You're too young, too inexperienced." But I kept going. I worked 16-hour days, often skipping meals to save money. Slowly, clients came in. By 28, Code Nova was valued at over $40 million, and I was no longer the girl my family dismissed. I was Lena Caldwell, CEO, innovator, and creator of something they couldn't control. Then, one morning, as sunlight filtered through the glass walls of my San Francisco office, my assistant brought me an envelope, thick, embossed, with golden lettering. I turned it over and froze. The logo of Caldwell Couture gleamed under the light. Inside was an invitation to their 25th anniversary gala. My hands trembled as I read it. After 11 years of silence, they wanted me there. Why? To show me what I'd missed? To parade their success in front of me? No, this wasn't a coincidence. This was an opportunity. That evening, I met my best friend, Samantha Lee, at a downtown cafe. She'd been my rock through every low moment. She'd seen me cry over rejected investors and celebrate my first big client. When I told her about the invitation, she stared at me over her latte, eyes wide. "You're seriously thinking of going back?" she asked. "I'm not going back," I said quietly. "I'm walking in." Samantha smiled knowingly. "Then walk in like the woman who built her empire from the ashes they left you in." I smiled back. That night, I booked my flight to Seattle. The day of the gala arrived faster than I expected. The Seattle Grand Conference Hall was draped in silver and white, with photographers flashing cameras at every arriving guest. Their world, the world that once rejected me, was shimmering in false perfection. I wore a sleek black dress with minimal jewelry, my hair tied into a sharp bun. When I entered the ballroom, conversations faltered. I felt hundreds of eyes turn toward me, some curious, others shocked. Across the room, Ava was laughing with a group of designers, her golden gown sparkling under the chandeliers. Her laughter died the moment she saw me. Her face went pale, then stiffened into a practiced smile. She hadn't seen me in over a decade, but recognition hit instantly. She whispered something to a man beside her husband, I assumed, and turned away as if my presence had soured her champagne. I smiled faintly. The last time she'd seen me, I was the outcast sister walking into the rain. Tonight, I was the storm returning home. As I made my way through the crowd, I spotted my parents near the stage, Gregory and Elaine Caldwell, the power couple of the fashion world. My father's commanding posture hadn't changed, but the wrinkles around his eyes told me time hadn't been kind. My mother still had that poised elegance that cameras loved, but her eyes betrayed something brittle underneath. They hadn't seen me yet. Good. I needed to prepare my stage. A tall man approached me near the bar. "You look familiar," he said, smiling warmly. "I'm Ethan Cole, Ava's husband." "Ah," I replied with a faint smirk. "Then I suppose we're practically family." His brows furrowed slightly. "Family? Let's just say the Caldwells and I go way back." He chuckled, sensing tension but not the storm behind it. "You must tell me more." "I will," I said at the right moment. Before he could ask further, a group of business investors recognized me. "Aren't you the founder of Code Nova?" one asked, his tone excited. "I am." "You revolutionized small business automation," another exclaimed. "Your software's been on every tech review board this quarter." My name spread through the circle, sparking murmurs. I could see Ava watching from across the room, her face tightening as her husband turned toward me, clearly impressed. That was the first crack. I didn't need to humiliate them with anger or insults. I only needed to show them who I had become. My presence, my success, it was the quietest and most devastating revenge. And when my father finally noticed me across the room, his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to dread. I lifted my glass in a silent toast. He didn't return it. Because deep down he knew the daughter he cast aside had come home, and this time she wasn't here to beg. She was here to conquer. The music swelled around the room, violins, champagne flutes clinking, the hum of polite conversation. But all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. 11 years of silence, exile, and determination had led to this moment. My father's eyes locked on mine from across the ballroom. For the first time, he looked uncertain. I saw his lips tighten, his grip on my mother's arm stiffen. Elaine whispered something to him, her gaze darting toward the guests who were beginning to murmur. She didn't want a scene. She wanted control. But that's exactly what she was about to lose. Ava tried to compose herself, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She whispered into Ethan's ear, clearly trying to pull him away from me, but curiosity had already taken hold of him. He wanted to know who I was and why his wife looked terrified. When I turned toward the stage, the host announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the founders of Caldwell Couture, Gregory and Elaine Caldwell, as we celebrate 25 years of excellence." Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed as my parents ascended the steps, every move rehearsed, every smile perfectly timed. They thanked sponsors, employees, and investors, painting their legacy as one built on family, unity, and trust. I almost laughed. Family, unity, trust. When the applause faded, I saw the opening. The stage lights dimmed slightly as a final toast was called. Guests gathered closer. I stepped forward, heels striking the marble like a drumbeat. "Excuse me," I said, my voice calm but cutting through the noise like a blade. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. The air went still. I climbed the steps slowly, taking the microphone from the stunned host, whose eyes flicked nervously toward my father. Gregory's jaw clenched, but he didn't move. He couldn't, not without drawing more attention. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and steady. "My name is Lena Caldwell." The reaction was immediate. Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers turned into waves of murmuring as faces turned toward my parents. My mother's painted smile faltered. Ava's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering at her feet. "I was raised in this family," I continued, "but I wasn't part of it. Not really. I was the daughter they didn't want, the one who didn't fit their perfect picture." The silence was deafening. Even the musicians had stopped playing. When I was 18, I told my parents I wanted to build something of my own, to work in technology, not fashion. That night, they told me I was a disappointment. They disowned me and sent me into the world with nothing but my will to survive. Someone in the crowd audibly gasped. I caught the flicker of disbelief on Ethan's face as he looked between me and Ava. But the funny thing about rejection, I said, is that it can become your greatest motivation. You see, when the people who are supposed to believe in you the most tell you that you'll never succeed, it gives you something stronger than validation. It gives you fire. My father stepped forward, his voice strained. That's enough, Lena. I didn't stop. Tonight you celebrate 25 years of a fashion empire built on image, but image fades. Truth doesn't. And the truth is, sometimes the family that claims to lift others up is the same one that tries to bury them. A hush fell. The audience was completely still. I set the microphone down gently and looked directly at my father. Congratulations, Dad. Your legacy is beautiful on the outside. But we both know what it cost on the inside. Applause erupted, not from everyone, but from enough to shatter the illusion of control. Some clapped awkwardly, others stared in shock. I stepped off the stage as Gregory's face flushed red with fury. Ethan approached me as I crossed the ballroom. You're her sister, he said softly, realization dawning. Ava never told me. Of course she didn't, I replied. Wouldn't fit the narrative, would it? He frowned. Why now? Why come back? I smiled faintly, because every story deserves its ending. Before he could respond, I felt a hand grip my arm. My mother's perfume hit me before her voice did. You've made your point, she hissed. Leave before you humiliate us further. I turned slowly, meeting her eyes. You humiliated yourselves when you threw me away. Her lips parted, but no words came. The guests nearby were pretending not to listen, but their ears were tuned to every syllable. Enjoy your evening, Elaine, I said softly. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to finish what you started. I pulled free and walked toward the bar. That's when I heard another voice behind me. Lena Caldwell, a man said. I thought it might be you. I turned to see a man in his late 40s, tall, with salt and pepper hair and an engineer's posture. He offered a small smile. I'm Miles Garrett, former head of RD at Caldwell Couture. I worked with your father years ago. I nodded cautiously. And? He glanced around before lowering his voice. I know what Gregory did to you. I frowned. What do you mean? After you left, he made calls. Blacklisted you from every major tech firm in Seattle. Told people you were unstable, unreliable. It wasn't enough for him to push you out. He wanted to make sure no one would take you in. For a moment, the room blurred. The years of rejection, the doors that had closed, the unexplained silences from interviews, it all made sense now. Why tell me this now? I asked quietly. Because tonight, you have the upper hand, he said, and because you deserve to know the truth. Before I could respond, a woman joined us. She was elegant, composed, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Miles, she said, introduce me. This is Vivian Cole, he said, Ethan's sister. Vivian extended her hand, her grip firm. I've been doing some digging into your family's company, she said, and I found something you'll want to see. She pulled out her phone and showed me a document, a patent registration for a data management framework. My framework, my algorithm. But the listed inventor wasn't me. It was Ava Caldwell. My chest tightened. She stole my work. Vivian nodded. Your company's system inspired their new product launch, but they didn't credit you. They copied you. I have the files, timestamps, and emails to prove it. Anger rose in my throat. Not wild, reckless anger, but a cold, precise one, the kind that plans. Thank you, I said quietly. Across the room, Ava was laughing with guests again, pretending nothing was wrong. Her performance was flawless until she noticed me staring back at her. She froze, her smile faltering. I started walking toward her, every step deliberate. The crowd seemed to part as if sensing a confrontation. When I reached her, I stopped just a few feet away. Enjoying the night? I asked sweetly. Her eyes flicked nervously toward Ethan, then back to me. Lena, this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, I interrupted. My voice was calm, but it carried. You took my work, Ava. You used my algorithm for your company's new project. Her jaw dropped. That's not true. Vivian stepped up beside me, holding up her phone. Actually, it is. And I have the documentation to prove it. Gasps spread through the guests. Ethan's face went pale. Ava? He demanded, his voice sharp. Tell me she's lying. Ava's lips trembled. I don't know what she's talking about. Don't you? I said. Because your patent timestamps match my company's prototype logs exactly. Ethan's expression hardened. You stole from her, he said quietly, betrayal cutting through his voice. Ava turned away, but the damage was done. The crowd was buzzing, eyes wide, whispers spreading like wildfire. Cameras flashed again, not for glamour, but for scandal. I didn't need to say another word. My silence was louder than any accusation. As I turned away, I caught my father's expression, rage mixed with fear. For the first time in his life, he wasn't in control, and that was the sweetest victory of all. The ballroom was chaos disguised in luxury. Beneath the glittering chandeliers and the soft hum of a string quartet struggling to keep the atmosphere calm, the Caldwell family name was unraveling in real time. Guests whispered behind champagne glasses, cameras clicked discreetly, and social media posts were already flooding the internet. The perfect image my parents had spent decades curating was dissolving, one secret at a time. Ava stood frozen in the center of it all, her face pale, her hands trembling. Ethan had stepped back from her, his expression unreadable, somewhere between disgust and disbelief. My father was trying to hold it together, gripping my mother's arm as she whispered frantically in his ear. But the calm poise of Gregory and Elaine Caldwell was gone. They looked small, fragile, human. Vivian slipped her phone back into her purse, her eyes gleaming. I'll be in touch, Lena, she said quietly. You might want to prepare your lawyers. The patent office will be hearing from us first thing Monday morning. I nodded, my voice low. Thank you. For everything. She smiled faintly. Don't thank me yet. This is only the beginning. When she left, I turned to Ava. She was still standing there, clutching her purse like it could anchor her to reality. You could have built your own success, I said softly. But you had to take mine instead. Her lips parted, her voice shaking. You don't understand. Dad wanted it. He said it was the only way to keep the company relevant. I didn't want... Don't, I cut her off. You always wanted it. You wanted to beat me. Even when we were kids, you couldn't stand the thought of me being better at something. A tear rolled down her cheek, glimmering in the stage lights. You think this makes you better than us? Coming back here and humiliating the family? I leaned closer, my tone cold but even. No, Ava. I didn't humiliate the family. The truth did. I turned and walked away before she could respond. As I crossed the ballroom, I felt every eye on me, but I didn't shrink from it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the outcast. I was the reckoning. When I reached the doors, a voice called out behind me. Lena, wait. I stopped. My father's voice. I turned slowly to face him. He was standing near the stage, his perfect composure finally cracked. The proud titan of Caldwell Couture looked suddenly older, his shoulders sagging beneath the weight of years of lies and control. 5 minutes, he said quietly, his tone stripped of authority. Please. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who had once ordered me out of his house was now asking for a conversation. I followed him into a side room, away from the crowd. The door closed behind us, muting the noise of the gala. It was quiet, too quiet. Just the two of us and the ghost of the past hanging in the air. He didn't waste time. You've made your point, he said, his voice steady but weary. If you came here to destroy us, congratulations. You've succeeded. I folded my arms. Destroy you? I didn't need to, Dad. You did that yourself. All I did was tell the truth. He exhaled sharply, pacing. You think you know everything, but you don't understand what it takes to run a legacy, to hold a company together. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. I laughed softly. Sacrifices? You mean people. You mean me. His jaw tightened. You were reckless. You walked away from the opportunity of a lifetime. You could have been part of something great. I am part of something great, I said firmly. But I built it myself, without your money, without your name, without your approval. Everything you said I couldn't do, I did. He stared at me, the muscle in his jaw twitching. You've changed. I had to, I said, because you made sure the girl I used to be didn't survive. He looked away for a moment, his voice dropping to a whisper. You don't know how hard it was to let you go. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. You didn't let me go. You threw me away. Silence filled the space between us. For the first time, he couldn't find a comeback. The man who always had the last word finally had none. Then he said something I didn't expect. I was wrong. The words hung there, strange and fragile, like glass that might shatter with one wrong move. I studied his face. He wasn't lying. His eyes, so often cold and calculating, held something I hadn't seen in years. Regret. You think saying that changes anything? I asked quietly. No, he said. But maybe it's a start. He took a step closer. Lena, I followed your company's growth. I knew it was you. I saw the articles, the interviews. I just didn't know how to reach out after what I did. So you didn't, I said, because admitting you were wrong would have meant admitting your empire had cracks. He said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Finally, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. If it means anything, I'm proud of you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because part of me, the part that had once been that desperate, heartbroken teenager, wanted to believe him, wanted to forgive him. But another part, the woman I'd become, knew better. I looked at him one last time. You don't get to be proud of me, Dad, not after what you did. And then I walked out. When I returned to the ballroom, the air was electric. Reporters were already whispering about the Caldwell scandal, and investors had begun to quietly pull their interest. I saw Ava sitting at a table alone, staring blankly at her untouched drink. Ethan stood nearby, talking to Vivienne in low tones. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, it was closure. But the night wasn't over. The following morning, I woke up in my hotel suite to a flood of notifications. Articles were everywhere. Caldwell empire crumbles amidst scandal. Disowned daughter reveals family secrets at gala. CEO Lena Caldwell's algorithm stolen by sister. My phone buzzed again. It was Samantha. You're trending on every platform, she said, half shocked, half amused. You blew up their empire overnight. I smiled faintly. I didn't blow it up. I just lit the match. They built the powder themselves. By noon, my inbox was full. Partnership offers, interview requests, investor proposals. People who'd ignored my calls years ago were suddenly desperate to talk. But I wasn't doing it for fame or money anymore. This was about truth and peace. Later that afternoon, I met with Vivienne and her legal team. The patent suit was being filed that day, and the evidence was airtight. Ava's signature, timestamps, duplicated code, all traced back to my original files. Within a week, the story hit every major tech publication. Caldwell Couture's stock plummeted. Investors withdrew millions. Ethan filed for separation from Ava, and she resigned from her position at the company under public pressure. My father stepped down as CEO, citing health reasons, though everyone knew the real reason was scandal. The mighty Caldwell name had finally fallen. A month later, I returned to Seattle one last time. Not for revenge this time, but for closure. I drove past the old mansion, the one I'd left as a broken teenager. It looked smaller now, older. The windows were dark, the gardens overgrown. I stopped my car at the gate, staring through the iron bars. I could still see flashes of my past there, the girl who'd walked away in the rain, carrying everything she owned in a duffel bag. But she wasn't me anymore. I took out my phone and typed a message to Samantha. It's done. The past is finally behind me. She replied a minute later, No, Lena, it's not behind you, it's beneath you. I smiled, watching the rain begin to fall. The same soft Seattle drizzle that had once felt like rejection now felt like renewal. In the distance, thunder rolled, and I whispered to myself, You see, success isn't the best revenge. Peace is. I started the car and drove away from the mansion, from the ghosts, from the hurt. The city skyline shimmered through the mist, and for the first time I felt light, free. Because after 11 years, I'd finally learned something my family never understood. Power isn't about control or legacy. It's about letting go, and walking away stronger than you were when you were broken.